So here are the objectives. Differentiate. Differentiate the terms performance management and performance evaluation. We need to differentiate what is performance evaluation and also the performance management. What are the um, what are the comparison and their differentiate. Number two is analyzed. Analyze type of rating error that can occur in performance evaluation. Compare the advantage of performance evaluation techniques. Also, examine the 360 feedback system's potential strengths and problems. Lastly is to describe the process of feedback, review, and the skill required for it. So, performance management is the process by which executives, managers, and supervisors work to align employees' performance with the firm goals. An effective performance management process has a precise definition of excellent performance, while performance evaluation is the activity used to determine the extent to which an employee performs work effectively. Which is, ang differentiate nito is ang pagkakaiba pala ng performance management and performance evaluation are, performance evaluation is the process of measuring an employee's performance against predetermined objectives or criteria that provides a systematic way to measure an employee's performance and to identify area for improvements. While the performance management naman is, it is a broader concept that can performance evaluation. It is the process of creating a work environment in which employees are motivated to perform at the highest level. It involves setting goals, providing feedback, coaching and developing employees, and also taking corrective actions with when it's necessary. It's also a continuous process that facilitates achieving organizational objectives. So next is the purpose performance evaluation. Number one here is development. It can determine which employees need more training and it can help evaluate the results of training programs. It also helps the subordinate supervisor counseling relationship and it encourages supervisor to observe subordinates' behavior to help employees. For example, a company may develop a more comprehensive performance evaluation process that involves multiple steps. This might include formal review of employees' performance with additional feedback based on employees' observation from peers, supervisors, and customers. The process could also include goal settings that is tracked and measured over time, as well as a clear and consistent system for documenting performance levels. Additionally, the company could implement a system for providing feedback to employees on an ongoing basis, allowing for an ongoing conversation about performance and progress. So next, we have motivation. It can encourage initiative, develop a sense of responsibility, and stimulate efforts to perform better. Example is here, me. Our example, David. David has a great attitude and is always motivated to take on extra responsibilities. He is a self-starter and he takes initiatives to complete tasks early and efficiently. He is also a role model for others in the department and has consistently exceeded performance expectations. So under motivation, we have human resource and employment planning. It can serve as a valuable input to skills, inventories, and human resource planning. So next is communications. It can serve as a basis of an ongoing discussion between superior and subordinate about job-related matters. Through interaction and effective feedback process, the parties get to know each other better. So here, uh, in our performance evaluations, is it important that we communicate clearly and effectively about our progress and goals? So, legal compliance. It can serve as a legally defensible reason for promotions, transfer, rewards, and discharge. Example of this is employees should ensure that their performance evaluations are in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. So again, here are the performance evaluation. It is important factor in HRM activities. particularly when it comes to equal employment opportunity. It is important to ensure that evaluations are considered fair and treat everyone with dignity, but this is difficult to achieve due to unfairness, negative practices, and a short-term focus. If done correctly, if done incorrectly, intense conflict can occur, leading to a decrease in the quality of evaluation. So, critics of performance evaluation system offer some meaningful insights. The HR Journal provides some points raised by the quality expert Edward Deming. His critique should be considered as you learn more about performance evaluation approach. So, the here are the examples of the critic performance evaluation system which you can use, or maybe it can matatakal natin or maano ko sa aking assessment. Number one is the unclear objectives. Performance evaluation system often lack clear objectives and criteria, making it difficult to set measurable goals and objectives. Another one is the subjectivity. Performance evaluation systems are often subjective, leading to bias or inconsistencies in the evaluation process. Another one is the lack of training. Performance evaluation systems tend to lack sufficient training for managers to properly administer them. Also, last one is the unmotivating. Performance evaluation systems can be inspiring and lead to a sense of distrust and lower morale among employees. So as you can see, these are the suggestions to follow for developing and implementing legally defensive appraisal system. Number one is to procedure for human resource decision must not differ as a function of the race, sex, national origin, religion, or age for those affected by such as decisions. Number two is to objectives, non-rated and uncontaminated data should be used whenever available. Number three is a formal system for review or appeal should be available for disagreement over appraisals. Number four is more than one independent evaluator or of performance should be used. And number five, a formal standardized system for evaluation should be used. Number six, rating on traits such as dependability, drive, aptitude, and attitude should be avoided. Number seven, performance evaluation data should be empirically validated. Number eight is specific performance standards should be communicated to employee. Number nine is raters should be provided with written instructions on how to complete the performance evaluation. Number 10, employees should be evaluated on specific work dimensions rather than a single overall or the global measure. Number 11 is behavioral documentation should be required for extreme ratings. Example, the incidents and so on. And lastly, number 12, employees should be provided with an opportunity to review them. So here are the examples of lawsuits that include focus at least partly on the perceived fairness of performance appraisal. No, number one is the Coca-Cola Company. It settled a lawsuit of $188 million with approximately 2,000 current and former African American employees from allegation of disparities in pay, promotions, and performance evaluations. So, so here are the format of evaluation. The meaning of format evaluation. A systematic process to provide accurate and reliable data is essential for an organization to serve its goals and comply with the law. This process involves 6 steps. Okay, so here are the 6 steps. So here are the 6 steps of format evaluation. Establish performance standards for each position and create the criteria for evaluation. Establish performance evaluation policies on when to rate, how often to rate, and who should rate. Have raters gather data on employees' performance. Or have raters evaluate employees' performance. Discuss the evaluation with the employee and also make decision and file the evaluation.
Establish criteria. The dimensions of performance upon which an employment is evaluated are called the criteria of evaluation. Example include quality of works, quantity of works, and cost of works. The three types of established criteria. First, reliability. A measurement of performance must be consistent. Perhaps the most important types of consistency for performance measurement is in turn rather reliability. Second, relevance. A measurement of performance must be related to the actual output of an incumbent as logically as possible. Third, sensitivity. Any criterion must be able to reflect the differences between high and low performers. That is, high and low performers must be received criterion scores that accurately represent the differences in their performance. Established criteria. Practicality. The criterion must be measurable, and data collection cannot be inefficient or too disruptive. Most studies indicate that multiple criteria are necessary to measure performance completely. The multiple criteria are added together statically or combined into a single multi-phase measure. The choices of criteria is not an easy process. One must be careful to evaluate both activities. For example, number of calls a salesperson makes and result. For examples, dollars of sales, a combination of criteria using result and activities is desirable. Set policies on who evaluates, when, and how often. When should evaluation be done? A survey conducted by Human Resources Institution found that only 36% of over 1,000 respondents actually considers performance management essential. Also, only 17% indicates that their employees believe that process of appraisal provides value to the organization. For those organizations that continue to rely on annual evaluation, there are two choices for when to actually conduct the evaluation. In many organizations, performance evaluations are scheduled for arbitrary dates such as the dates the person was hired, anniversary date. Alternatively, all employment must be evaluated on a near single calendar date. Operating in human resources managers, rules and performance evaluation. Establish performance standards recommended by HR managers, approved by operating managers, set policies on who evaluates, when evaluates occurs, and which evaluation system is used. Recommend by HR manager, train raters to decrease bias, increase consistency of administrations done by HR managers. Review employees' performance and discuss results with employees done by operating managers. File performance evaluation done by both HR managers and operating.
Who should evaluate the employee? As Exhibit 92 shows, performance evaluation is another HRM activity that involves cooperation between the line operating managers and the HR specialists. Supervisors are to complete the performance evaluation of the employee and evaluate the employee's performance in meeting the goals with one of the following exceptional exceeds expectations. Rating by a committee of several supervisors. The supervisors chosen are those most likely to come into contact with the employee. This approach has the advantages of rating by the employee's peers co-workers. In the peer evaluation system, the co-workers must know the level of performance of the employee being evaluated. For this system to work, it is favorable for the evaluating peers to trust one another and not to be competition for raises and promotions. A peer review at work is when co-workers evaluate each other's performance. Managers create peer review forms that allow everyone to grade peers anonymously. Usually, this helps people give honest opinions about their co-workers in the office. Rating by the employee's subordinates. Exxon has used this system and it used in some universities. Students evaluate the faculty teaching effectiveness. It is used more for the developmental aspects of performance evaluation than are some of the other methods. Immediate subordinates, its proponents argue that eliciting these opinions is consistent with recent trends towards enhancing honesty, openness, and empowerment in the workplace. There are three elements to consider when evaluating teaching effectiveness within a particular context. Criteria, attributes of effective teaching, evidence, documentation of teaching considered in the review process, and standards, expectation of quality and quantity. Rating by someone outside the immediate work situation. Known as the field review technique, this method uses a specialized appraiser from outside the job setting, such as a human resource specialist to rate the employee.
Self-evaluation. In this case, the employee evaluates herself or himself with the techniques used by other evaluators. Rating by a combination of approaches. Surveys and research indicate that most employees are not satisfied with one or more aspects of performance evaluation system. 360-degree feedback system. One system of appraising performance that appears to be growing in popularity is the 360-degree feedback system. Some positive and negative features of 360-degree appraisal system. Here are the positives. Multiple perspectives of a person's performance are provided. Ratings can evaluate persons based on actual contact and observation. Feedback is provided from multiple directions above, below, and peer. Anonymous upward feedback results in full participation. And lastly, learning about weaknesses and strengths is motivational. The negatives are feedback from all sources can be overwhelming. Rather can rater can hide in a group raters and provide harsh evaluations. Conflicting ratings can be confusing and frustrating. And lastly, providing feedback that is constructive requires a plan and well-trained raters. This is not typically found in organizations. Selected evaluation techniques. There are many ways to evaluate employees. There are many ways to evaluate employees. Some of the most common will be described here. Generally speaking, these methods can be divided into two broad categories. One category consists of methods that evaluate employees individually. The second category depends on multiple person evaluations. Multiple person evaluations requires that the supervisor to directly and intentionally compare the performance of one employee with that one of the employees.
Individual evaluation methods. Graphic rating scale. Several individual evaluation methods are used in business today, but the oldest and perhaps the most common one is the graphic rating scale. The mixed standards is 7-point scale that uses three statements to describe a trait. After each description, the rate replaces a check mark, plus signs, and minus sign. The second modification is to add operational and benchmark statement to describe different levels of performance. The performance descriptions are designed to guide the rater by giving examples of people who deserve a particular rating. First choice items. Graphic rating scales led to the development of first choice methods, which allows supervisors to rate everyone high without distinguishing between good and poor performer. First choice items are usually prepared by an HR specialist, and supervisors or other evaluate how applicable each statement is. The critical incident technique requires a supervisor be given enough time to observe its, each subordinate during the evaluation period and to take the time to record the incident in a log. If done properly, the log can help avoid rating errors and facilitate discussions about how employees' performance can be improved. Is AC evaluation. The most important details are that the supervisors must be given enough time to observe each subordinate during the evaluation period and that they must be willing to take the time to record the incident in a log. Keeping a diary in the form of a log is a valuable aid in formulating an accurate appraisal of employees' strengths and weaknesses. Critical incident technique. Rater must be maintained a log of behavioral incidents that represent either effective or ineffective performance for each employee being rated. Behavioral anchored rating scales. Smith and Kendall developed what is referred to as the behaviorally anchored rating scales, or known as bars, the behavioral expectation scales as BES. The bars approach relies on the use of critical incident to serve an anchor statement on a scale. A bars rating form usually contains 6 to 10 specifically defined performance dimension, each with 5 or 6 critical incident anchors.
Behavior observation skills is an approach to performance evaluation. Behavior uses a critical incident technique to identify a series of behavior covering the domain of the job. Behavior were developed in the hope that they will yield more objective ratings rather than other rating skills format. If behavior-oriented approach have any advantages over other formats, it is in the developing process that is typically used. Supervisor and subordinates are involved. They must complete them by the person whose performance is being assessed. A second possible benefit of the behavior approach is that it helps to focus on the manager's attention on a critical situation. In short, your observation skills is a measures behaviors that you want the employee to achieve. The next one is the multi-person evaluation methods. By design, the method of performance evaluation described so far is supposed to be used for evaluating employees one at a time, with no direct comparison between employees. They have a similar kind of information. A list is of employees ranked from best to worst. For example, ranking method, paired comparison method, force distribution method, group appraisal, and human resource accounting. The next one is the ranking. This is the supervisor to generate a list of subordinates in order on some overall criterion. It is easier for a supervisor to take the rank the best and worst employee in a reliable way than it is to rank the average. The key to this system is that the predetermined distribution must be followed by the rater regardless on how well the student or the employees must be performed. The directors or force distribution system argue that there are several negative consequences of using such a rigid approach to evaluating information, including in comparing employees against one another, cause of unhealthy relationship among them. If the ranking is based on less than perfect assessment method, force, distribution system will lead to a legal action, and after the first year or two determining low performer category, ultimately using morally problem. For example, employees are ranked with the preconceived notion that 10% are rated most effective, 80% are rated.
Management by objectives. In most of the traditional performance evaluation system, the rater judge their past performance and reports it using the forced distribution. Performance evaluation is used for making important decisions that affect the employees. The rater is placed in a difficult and somewhat antagonist role. MacGregor believed that rather than creating antagonists because of judgment, the superior should work with their subordinate to set their goal. The earlier beliefs of MacGregor, Drucker, and Odium has emerged the management of objectives approach. MBO is not just an evaluation and process, it is also a managerial practice, a method by which managers and subordinates plan, organize, control, communicate, and debate. A MBO program follows a systematic process such as superior and subordinate conduct a meeting to set a certain objectives. The participants set objectives that are realistic, challenging, clear, and comprehensive. The superior establish a criteria for assessment after meeting with subordinates. Dates for reviewing are important. The superior and subordinates require modification in the original objectives. The final evaluation by the superior is made with a meeting with subordinates in a counseling encouraging session. And lastly, objectives for the next cycle are set by the subordinates after consulting with their superior, keeping in mind their previous cycle and future expectations. MBO type programs have been used in organizations throughout the world. Most of these objectives are stated in the language of the job and occupation. Some of them are routine, innovative, and some are personal, such as account objectives. For MBO, superior and subordinates must be involved in objective formulation process. Historically, one of the central features of MBO was about discussion of subordinates' performance. One of the MBO greatest advantage about performance over other evaluation system. Some MBO programs are too result-oriented and inefficiently process-oriented. For example, W. Edwards Deming argued that a focus on numerical goals, managing by result, and taking immediate actions on any errors has been led to a dysfunctional management style. The major complaint of MBO it is placed too much emphasis on detecting problem and too little emphasis on preventing difficulties before it occurs. He argues that they must focus on delivery and service and production. The superior and subordinates should work cooperatively to improve their productivity. The superiors should be the one to coach. The number of the other pitfalls and problem with MBO has been identified. They include with the following: too much paperwork is involved, too much objectives to be set, and confusion occurs. MBO is forced into jobs where establishing objectively is extremely difficult. And lastly, there may be a failure. Sample of MBO evaluation objectives: occupation and organization, sales representative, product manager, skilled machinist, accountant, plant manager, engineer. Types of organization: petrochemical firm, food processing plant, job shop, accounting firm, assembly line plant, construction company. Objective statement. Contract 6 new clients in West AVA region and sell to at least 2 of these new clients within the next semi-annual cycle. Increase market share of creamy peanut butter by at least 3.5% before next objective meeting 9 months from today, without increasing costs by more than 2%. Reduce flange rejects by 8% by August 15. Attend 2 auditing seminars to improve and update audit knowledge by the end of summer, September 15. Decrease absenteeism of operating employees from 18.9% to under 10% by January 1. Complete power plant tower project within 30 days of government specified target date, November 10. Other pitfalls and problems with MBO have been identified. These include the following. Number 1, too much paperwork is involved. Number 2, too many objectives are set and confusion occurs. It appears to be more efficient to work with only 4, 5, or 6 objectives. Number 3, MBO is forced into jobs where establishing objectives is extremely difficult. Number 4, there may be a failure to tie into MBO results with rewards. The questions, why are we doing this, is often asked. Number 6, is too much emphasis on the short term. Number 7, superiors are not trained in the MBO process and the mechanics involved. Number 8, original objectives are never modified. Number 9, MBO is used as a rigid control device that intimidates rather than motivates. Which technique to use? Studies shows that other methods such as first choice, critical incidents, BARS, BOS, field review, and MBO combined are used by only about 5% of firm. Ranking and paired comparison are used by 10 to 13% of employees. Advantage and disadvantage of various performance evaluation techniques. Performance evaluation techniques. Rating scale. Easy to use, easy to complete, relatively low cost. Focus is too much on person instead of on performance. First choice. Selectively low cost, easy to use, difficult to explain to those being evaluated. Essay. Good in providing specific feedback in evaluator is a good worker. Difficult in making comparisons across those being evaluated. Critical incidents. Time consuming, must be disciplined to lag in incidents, reveals critical behaviors that can be feedback easily. Behavior skills. Difficult to develop, time-consuming, great for providing specific feedback to aid in improving performance. 360-degree feedback. Provide a more complete view of performance but is time-consuming and expensive, moderately administered. Ranking and paired comparisons. Hard to use for providing feedback, good for making comparisons among employees. MBO focuses on results that are important, sometimes too short, term-oriented, does not engage.
Problems in performance evaluation. For example, they focus too much attention on alleviating symptoms of poor performance rather than identifying the underlying causes. And number two, manager and employees dislike the evaluation process. Raters especially have problems with reaching decisions about the performance category experience and reverse motivation effects. And number three, the design can be blamed if the criteria for evaluation are poor, or the system is more from substance. If the criteria used focus solely on activities rather than outputs. And the last one, some evaluation techniques takes a long time to carry out or require extensive written analysis, of both of which many managers resist.
Rate problems. Superiors may not be comfortable with the process of evaluation, or what Douglas MacGregor called playing God. This is often because they have not been adequately trained or have not participated in the design of the programs. Inadequate training of raters can lead to a series of problems in completing performance evaluations, including problems with standards of evaluation, halo effect, leniency or harshness, central tendency error, recency of events error, contrast effect, personal bias. Standards of evaluation. Problems with evaluation standards arise because of perceptual differences in the meaning of the words used to evaluate employees. Good, adequate, satisfactory, and excellent may mean different things to different evaluators. Some teachers are easy A, while others almost never give an A. They differ in their interpretation of excellent. If only one rater is used, the evaluation can be distorted. This difficulty arises most often in graphic rating skills but may also appear with essays, critical incidents, and checklists. The halo effect. Halo error occurs when a rater assigns ratings for several dimensions of performance based on an overall general impression of the rate. It was believed that halo errors in ratings were the major problem in performance evaluation. Halo error can be either positive or negative, meaning that the initial impression can cause the ratings to be either too low or too high. A problem with understanding in dealing with halo error is that the ratings represent an error only if they are not justified. In other words, it is important to realize that there is a difference between halo errors and true halo, which occurs when uniformly high or low ratings across different aspects of performance are justified by the rate's performance. Halo errors are not as common as was once believed. Raters do seem to be able to distinguish halo errors from true halo in many situations.
Leniency or harshness error. Performance evaluation requires the rater to objectively reach a conclusion about performance. Being objective is difficult for everyone. Raters have their own rose-colored glasses with which they objectively view subordinates. Leniency or harshness rating error may occur in raters' evaluation of their subordinates. Some raters see everything as good. These are lenient raters. Other raters see everything as bad, and these are harsh raters. Raters can assess their own tendencies toward harsh and lenient rating by examining their ratings. This self-assessment is sometimes startling. Leniency or harshness error, it is a type of rating mistake in which the ratings are consistently overly positive, particularly regarding the performance or ability of the participants. When we say leniency error, is when a rater's tendency is to rate all the employees at the positive or negative leniency. But sometimes, our emotions determine how we rate an employee, and this emotional response may not be objective. Halimbawa dito ay kapag ang isang respondent sa survey ay nag-uulat or nag-ulat ng labis sa kanilang kita upang sa ganun ay may pakita nila na sila ay matagumpay or successful. Ngunit sa kanilang ginawa na iyon, maaaring humantong ito sa isang bias dahil ang data na kanilang nakolekta ay hindi ang tunay na representasyon ng populasyon. Next, we have the central tendency error. A central tendency error occurs when a rater avoids using high or low ratings and assigns average ratings. Raters must be made aware of the importance of discriminating across rates and the use of evaluations. This sometimes stimulates raters to use less central or average ratings. Recency of events error is one of difficulty with many of the evaluation system is the time frame of the behavior being evaluated. Raters forget more about past behavior than current behavior. Some employees are well aware of this difficulty. Many evaluation systems suffer from this difficulty. It can be mitigated by using a technique such as critical incident or management by objectives or by irregularly scheduled evaluations. When we say central tendency, it refers to the propensity of respondents to not select extreme response categories, even when the extreme categories are most reflective of their actual positions. And while the recency error is the propensity of raters to give undue weight to more recent instances of employees' conduct, whether they were effective or ineffective, while evaluating performance over the course of the rating period. Next, we have the contrast effects. Contrast effects are another rating problem that is difficult to eliminate. Fortunately, this type of error seems to dissipate over time as more information about employees' performance is gathered. When we say contrast effect, it is an unconscious bias that happens when two things are judged in comparison to one another instead of being assessed individually. Ito naman yung nangyayari kapag hinuhusgahan ang dalawang bagay sa pamamagitan ng paghahambing sa isa't isa. Next, we have the personal bias error. A personal bias rating error is an error related to a personal bias held by a supervisor. There are several kinds of personal bias errors. Some can be conscious, such as blatant discrimination against someone because of sex or race, or some supervisors might try to play favorites and rate people they like higher than people they don't like. Other personal bias errors are more subtle, and the supervisor might be totally unaware of them. Personal bias error have been detected in many studies of performance evaluations. Research indicates that personal liking can affect the attribution of manager makes about a subordinate's level of performance as well as the kind of feedback that he or she will give. The effect of this error is generally small when supervisors have adequate performance related information about upon which to base ratings. But even small effects for characteristics such as sex, age, and race are cause of concern. So, when we say personal, it is refers to an errors in judgment that happens when a person allows their conscious or unconscious prejudice to affect their evaluation of another person. Next, we have the eliminating rater error. Eliminating error bias is especially important because when employees perceive that performance ratings are being manipulated by a supervisor due to personal bias or desire to punish employees, subordinates experience lower job and satisfaction and are more inclined to quit their jobs. So when we say eliminating rater error, it is essential because it decreases job satisfaction and raises the possibility that workers would quit their jobs when they suspect their superiors as faking their performance review. And also we have the rater training. It is one popular way to improve managers' ability to conduct effective performance appraisal is through rater training programs. The two most popular types are training programs designed to eliminate common rating error such as hollow error and training programs designed to improve the supervisor's observation and recording skills. In rater training, it is a process whereby raters undergo instruction on how to consistently evaluate trainees and produce reliable and accurate scores. Has been suggested to improve rater performance within behavioral sciences. Ito naman ang isang pamamaraan kung saan ang mga taga-rate ay tumatanggap ng pagsasanay kung paano patuloy na masuri ang mga trainees at makabuo ng magandang mga marka.
In other words, rather than emphasizing the negative, it is easier for subordinates to accept criticism of discussions of shortcomings are seen as part of larger topic of discussion's way of improving future performance. The feedback interview is designed to accomplish goals such as 1. Recognize and encouraging superior performance so that it will continue. 2. Sustaining acceptable behavior. And 3. Changing the behavior of rates whose evaluation has been properly done. The employee knows where he or she stands and has received positive feedback on accomplishment and help on shortcoming. This is the development aspect of performance evaluation.
Evaluating star managers at Bridgestone, Firestone Tire and Rubber. Bridgestone, Firestone manufactures and sells tires and related products for cars, trucks, buses, tractors, and airplanes. The tires are sold to automakers and consumers through 2,100 stores and many independent dealers. These stores are the vital link to the consumer. I think it is important information that the rates of managers need to be knowledgeable because as a rater, you should know the job also. It makes you more creditable to rate someone when you know what you are doing. It also allows the rater to compare the managers being rated with the company's objectives for the manager to accomplish while working.
Description of store manager responsibilities. Summary of duties. Has responsibility for securing maximum sales volume and maximum net profits. Supervises all phases of store operation, selling, merchandise display, service, pricing, inventories, credits and collections, operation, and maintenance. Responsible for the control of all store assets and prevention of merchandise shortage.
A. Human Resource Administration. Number 1. Directly supervise pivotal employees and through them, the other employees' direct activities, schedule duties, and hours of work and follow-ups for productive and sales results. Number 2. Interview applicants, updates formal application, determine qualifications. Number 3. Determine number of employee needed for profitable stores operations considering individual sales productivity, salary expenses, anticipated human resource requirements, and so on. Number 4. Prepare plans for and conduct employees meeting, instructing about new product and policies, developing sales enthusiasm, explaining incentives programs, holding sales demonstration, and so on. Number 5. Trains and direct to the training of new employee following established training programs for effective utilizations, conducting on-the-job training. B. Selling and sales promotion. Number 1. Break down store sales into individual daily accounts for each employee, follows progress of employees in meeting quotas, and determines and tests actions necessary to help him or her reach the objectives. Number 2. Works with salesperson in setting sales objectives and reviewing accomplishment. Number 3. Contacts personally and by telephone in active accounts and prospective customers and promoting and soliciting sales of merchandise and services. And following to close the sales, review prospect cards, assign them to employees, and follows to secure sales from each. Number 4. Contact selected commercial and dealer accounts for special sales promotions and solicitations, determining the sales possibilities and requirements, selling merchandise and service, and so on. Number 5. Prepare advertising copy following merchandising program suggestions and arrange for insertion of advertisement in local newspaper. Make sure employees are altered and store aims merchandise to back up advertising. Number 6. Maintain a firm retail, commercial, and wholesale pricing program according to established policies.
C. Inventory sales and expense control. Number 1. Reviews stocks turnover records for overstock conditions. Determines necessary corrective steps and take the appropriate action. Establish stock levels and orders according to sales result recorded in the stocks ledgers for new tires and retreats. Number 2. Prepare sales and expense budget covering projected sales and expenses for the period. Number 3. Review expense control sheet comparing actual expenses with budget figures. Determines and acts necessary to keep within the approval budget. Number 4. Is responsible for the completeness and accuracy of all inventories, accounting inventories, markup and markdown inventories, and so on. B. Checking. Number 1. check stock, automotive equipment, service floor, and so on, continually observing store activities and determining that equipment is maintained in good operating condition. Makes inspection trips through all parts of the store, checking observance of safety and fire precautions, protection of company assets, and so on. Check credit information secured for commercial and dealer accounts and works with office and credit manager in setting up credit limits. Number 2 is responsible for and investigates all cash shortage, open tickets, and missing tickets. Number 3 investigates customer complaints, adjusting or taking appropriate action for customer satisfaction.
So, lastly, letter E, the miscellaneous functions. Read and sign store operating policy and office procedure letters. Analyzes and puts into operation new policies and procedures as received. Prepares letter to district manager covering progress of the store plans, results secured, and market and special condition, and so on and so forth. Inspectors and other merchandise in for adjustment, determines appropriate settlement, prepare claims forms, and also issue credit, replace, and so on. Make all policy adjustments. Attend district sales and civic organizations meetings, take part in the civic affairs, community drives, and so on.